privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities.
King Charles stunned the world when he walked away from the throne, but the real shocker, Camilla may have been the one pulling the strings. After waiting a lifetime to wear the crown, he didn't just step down, he was pushed. And now the palace walls are shaking as the truth unravels. Tune in as the truth unfolds, revealing a power struggle so shocking, so sinister, that it threatens to shake the very foundations of the monarchy itself. Why King Charles walked away. Charles spent his whole life preparing for this job. When his mother, Queen Elizabeth, passed away on September 8, 2022, he finally became king. It was history in the making. He was the oldest person to ever take the British throne. But the pressure wasn't just about wearing a fancy crown, it was about living up to a legacy, a duty, and an entire country's expectations. The crown was heavy, but the real challenge was yet to come, one that would shake the monarchy to its core. He had barely warmed the throne before things started getting tense. He followed the traditions, delivered speeches, and kept up appearances. His coronation on May 6, 2023 was grand but toned down compared to his mother's. It was meant to feel modern, inclusive, and fit the times. But behind the golden carriage and sparkling jewels, cracks were already forming. Being king wasn't just about shaking hands and smiling for cameras, it was a full-time job, one that came with relentless pressure. Every move was scrutinized, every decision questioned. The weight of upholding centuries-old traditions while trying to stay relevant in the modern world was exhausting. And let's not forget the constant comparisons to his mother, who ruled for 70 years with unwavering grace. Even before he became king, Charles had been through a lot. His messy marriage with Princess Diana was splashed across every tabloid. Their divorce, followed by Diana's tragic death, put him under a microscope. The world had opinions, strong ones, about him and his relationship with Camilla. His connection with his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, was another ongoing drama that never seemed to quiet down. As time went on, Charles carried the weight of the monarchy, trying to balance his personal struggles with the immense responsibilities that came with being king. He had spent decades in the shadows, waiting for his moment, and when it finally arrived, it didn't bring the relief or satisfaction many expected. Instead, it was a constant battle. The scrutiny was suffocating. Every decision was dissected, from how he handled royal duties to his interactions with the public. There was no escape from the watchful eyes that followed him wherever he went. The pressure wasn't just external. Inside the palace walls, tension simmered. He had to maintain unity within the family, despite ongoing feuds and shifting loyalties. The dynamic with his sons remained strained, especially with Prince Harry's very public departure from royal life. William, next in line for the throne, was seen as the golden boy, the future of the monarchy. Charles, despite finally becoming king, often found himself overshadowed by his own son. Beyond the family drama, there were deeper concerns about the monarchy itself. Public opinion wavered. Support for the institution wasn't as strong as it had been in the past. Many questioned whether the monarchy was even necessary in a modern society. Calls for reform grew louder. The younger generation didn't hold the same reverence for the crown as previous ones. Charles, having waited his whole life for this role, now found himself leading a monarchy that was struggling to stay relevant. Behind closed doors, the stress took a toll. The long days filled with ceremonial duties, meetings, and appearances were draining. The expectations were endless. There was no room for mistakes. Every misstep became a headline. Every moment of weakness was analyzed. He had spent his entire life preparing for this role, yet the reality of being king was far from what he had imagined. As the months passed, it became evident that the burden was weighing on him. He grew more withdrawn. His public appearances, once carefully orchestrated, started feeling forced. The smile that once masked the stress became harder to maintain. Those close to him noticed the changes. The man who had once been determined to uphold the monarchy was now questioning if he could continue. The decision to step down wasn't made lightly. It was a culmination of years of pressure, personal struggles, and the realization that perhaps after all this time, he wasn't the right person to lead the monarchy into the future. It wasn't just about him, it was about the institution, the country, and the future generations who would carry the crown. When the announcement finally came, it sent shockwaves through the world. A king willingly giving up the throne? It was unprecedented. The media went into a frenzy. The public was left with more questions than answers. What would happen next? Who would take over? What did this mean for the future of the monarchy? The palace tried to control the narrative, releasing carefully worded statements about the transition. William was poised to step up, but the shift in power wasn't seamless. There were doubts. There was uncertainty. Charles, after spending his entire life preparing for this moment, was now walking away, leaving behind a monarchy that was facing one of its biggest challenges yet. His departure didn't just mark the end of his reign, it signaled a turning point for the monarchy. Could it survive without him? Could it adapt to the changing times? The questions lingered and the future remained uncertain. His story didn't end with his abdication. The man who had once carried the weight of the crown now had to navigate a new life, one without the responsibilities that had defined him for so long. For the first time in his life, he was free from the expectations that had shaped his every move. What would he do next? How would he redefine himself? Those were questions only time would answer. King Charles has always been under the microscope, every move picked apart, every word scrutinized. The weight of the crown isn't just ceremonial, it's a never-ending battle to balance duty and personal struggles. And right now, whispers are growing louder. Is he being blackmailed by Camilla? Could that be the reason behind his latest decisions? Charles always spoke his mind, but now his actions are raising bigger questions. Secrets behind the throne. For years, Charles has been walking a tightrope. He speaks his mind, and while that's refreshing, it hasn't always won him fans. Whether it was his thoughts on architecture, the environment, or royal traditions, his opinions have stirred the pot more than once. But now, things seem different. His behavior, his choices, some say they point to something bigger going on behind palace doors. But here's where things take a turn. Over the years, Charles has become more guarded, setting strict rules for interviews and controlling how his story is told. By 2015, he had tightened his grip on his public image, but at what cost? The pressure of maintaining a flawless reputation while dealing with internal battles has undoubtedly taken a toll. And now, with health concerns on top of everything else, the question arises, is he looking for an escape? Amid all this, Charles's health has been another point of concern. He's undergone multiple surgeries, including one in 1998 for his knee and another in 2003 for a hernia. Then, in early 2024, he had surgery for prostate issues, only to later reveal he had cancer. While he remains hopeful and continues his royal duties, it's clear the demands of his role aren't making things easier. The pressures of the job, the constant scrutiny, and his relentless work ethic, skipping meals, working late into the night, are only making matters worse. And this is where Camilla comes in. Some believe she holds more power over him than most realize. Could she be using his vulnerabilities against him? Over the years, their relationship has raised eyebrows. Once the other woman, she eventually became queen, solidifying her place in history. But did she get there through sheer charm, or is there more to the story? Could Charles be stuck in a situation where walking away isn't an option? His recent actions have fueled speculation. Some say he's considering stepping down, not just because of health reasons, but because of the personal battles he's facing. If Camilla truly has leverage over him, what could that mean for the monarchy? Could this be the beginning of an unraveling dynasty? The public's response has been mixed. Some see his potential resignation as a sign of weakness, a betrayal of his lifelong duty. Others argue it's a smart move. Why continue suffering under the weight of expectations when he could choose peace instead? One thing is certain, something is going on behind palace doors. Whether the king is being blackmailed, struggling with his health, or simply tired of the relentless scrutiny, the next few months could change the monarchy forever. If he steps down, the question remains, who really pulled the strings? These events didn't just happen overnight. The layers of pressure, secrecy, and scandal have been stacking up for decades. His personal struggles have been overshadowed by expectations, by the need to maintain tradition, by the unrelenting gaze of the press. But there's only so much a person can take before the weight becomes unbearable. Even before his reign, there were murmurs about the challenges he would face. As the longest-serving heir apparent in British history, he had spent a lifetime preparing for the throne. Yet when he finally took the crown, it became clear that the transition wasn't as seamless as some had hoped. The scrutiny increased, the expectations intensified, and the pressure mounted. And then the rumors about Camilla started gaining traction. Some insiders suggest that the king has been maneuvered into a corner. The relationship between him and Camilla has always been a topic of debate. Was it a love story that defied all odds, or was there a deeper game at play? There are those who believe Camilla has far more influence than meets the eye. Could she be the one pulling the strings behind the scenes? Could she be using her position to steer decisions in her favor? There have been whispers of private arguments, of moments where he seemed visibly distressed. Some say his demeanor has changed, that he appears more burdened, more withdrawn, and with his health issues worsening, his ability to push back against external pressures has weakened. If Camilla does have leverage over him, what does that mean for the monarchy's future? As speculation continues to swirl, royal watchers remain glued to every development. The idea of a reigning monarch stepping down is almost unthinkable, yet with every passing day, the possibility seems more real. If he does choose to abdicate, the repercussions would be enormous. The monarchy thrives on stability, on continuity, on the idea that the sovereign remains steadfast through all challenges. A resignation would send shockwaves through the institution, calling into question the very fabric of royal duty. At the heart of it all is one burning question. Is he making this decision on his own terms, or is he being forced into it? The difference is monumental. If he steps down willingly, it's a move of self-preservation, a recognition that he no longer wishes to endure the relentless demands of kingship. But if he's being manipulated into it, the implications are far darker. It would mean that the power dynamics within the palace are shifting in unprecedented ways. No one thought he would actually step down. Now, everything is changing. The shock that shook the monarchy. The British public is watching closely. Some express sympathy, understanding that the weight of royal life is immense. Others feel betrayed, believing that a monarch should endure, no matter the personal cost. Either way, one thing is clear. History is being written before our eyes, and the final chapter of this reign may be approaching faster than anyone expected. The next few months will be crucial. If the speculation proves true and the king does step down, the world will demand answers. Was this his choice, or was it orchestrated behind the scenes? And if Camilla truly holds the key to this decision, what does that mean for the monarchy's future? The truth, whatever it may be, is bound to shake the very foundations of the royal family. King Charles had always been the kind of guy who wanted to do things his own way, but nobody ever saw this coming. The whole world gasped when he just up and left the throne. Some folks thought it was a fresh modern move, like he was clearing the way for something new, while others thought it was the biggest royal mess-up in history. Either way, it shook the palace walls and left everyone scrambling. At first, people didn't know what to make of it. The younger crowd saw it as a sign of progress, like maybe the monarchy was finally waking up and catching up with the times. A king stepping down? That was unheard of. But for those who lived and breathed tradition, it was downright terrifying. A royal family was supposed to be rock solid, something that never changed. Now, it felt like anything could happen, and not in a good way. The whole world had something to say about it. Some leaders saw it as a bold move that could push other monarchies to rethink their own outdated ways. Others, especially in countries that still clung to their kings and queens like lifelines, panicked. If he could just walk away, what did that mean for the future of royalty everywhere? The monarchy had always been about stability, and now? Well, it felt more like a crumbling tower than a castle. But this wasn't just about one man making a big decision. This was a huge shift, one that forced everyone to ask some uncomfortable questions. Was this the beginning of a new era, or was it the start of the monarchy's downfall? Whatever it was too late to take it back. The history books were already writing themselves, and his name was all over them. His choice hit the royal family like a hurricane. Prince William had always known he'd take the throne one day, but not like this. One minute he was living his life, raising his kids, doing his royal duties. The next, boom. He was King William, and the weight of the crown was heavier than he ever imagined. Could he handle it? Could anyone? Meanwhile, Prince Harry, already off doing his own thing, probably watched the whole drama from a distance with mixed feelings. Maybe part of him felt relieved that he'd stepped away when he did. Maybe another part felt like an outsider all over again. Either way, the bombshell just made the cracks in the family even wider. For the rest of the royals, the resignation raised big, scary questions. Could they stick together and support William, or would this tear them apart even more? The monarchy was already walking a tightrope, and now, thanks to this, the safety net was gone. Some said it was a smart move, that he saw the writing on the wall and knew it was time for the next generation to take over. Others thought he was running away from the pressure, abandoning his duty when things got tough. Either way, his decision had set something into motion that couldn't be stopped. The monarchy was changing. Whether it was for the better or worse, nobody knew yet. As for William, he didn't have time to sit around and wonder. He had a whole kingdom looking to him for answers. The world was different now. People weren't just going to accept tradition for tradition's sake. They wanted a king who felt real, who understood what they cared about. Could William be that kind of leader? Could he balance the old ways with the new expectations? Every step he took, every word he spoke was now under a microscope. One wrong move and the monarchy might not recover. The pressure was unreal and the expectations were through the roof. The UK, the world, even his own family, everyone was waiting to see if he could pull this off. But William wasn't walking into this blind. He had spent years proving he cared about real issues, mental health, the environment, and connecting with everyday people. If anyone could reshape the monarchy for the modern world, maybe it was him. Still, the road ahead was nothing short of brutal. People were already divided. Some cheered him on, hoping he'd be the king they needed. Others doubted he could handle it, predicting that this was just the beginning of the end. One thing was clear, this wasn't just another chapter in royal history. This was a turning point, a moment that would define what came next. Would the monarchy survive? Would it thrive under William's rule, or would it crumble under the pressure? No one had the answers yet. The only thing left to do was watch, wait, and see how it all played out. The ripples of Charles's decision stretched far beyond Britain. Internationally, people were weighing in on what this meant for the future of royalty as a whole. Could a monarchy really exist in a world that was constantly evolving? Some nations saw it as an opportunity to discuss whether they even needed a monarchy at all, while others felt a deep sense of unease. A king voluntarily stepping down? That wasn't supposed to happen. For the older generations, this felt like the breaking of something sacred. The monarchy was supposed to be eternal, unshaken, a force that withstood time itself. But here it was, unraveling in front of their eyes. Younger people, however, had a different take. They had grown up questioning the necessity of a royal family in a world that was moving at lightning speed. To them, this was a chance to finally push for modernization. And then there was the media. The story took on a life of its own. Every news outlet, every social media platform, every late-night discussion was centered around Charles's decision and what it meant. Some called him a hero, a forward-thinking leader who understood that times were changing. Others labeled him a coward, a man who couldn't handle the responsibility he was born into. Within the palace walls, the mood was tense. Advisors were scrambling to keep things under control. There were endless meetings, whispered conversations, frantic damage control. What was the official narrative going to be? How would they present this to the world in a way that didn't make the monarchy look weak? Even as the chaos unfolded, Charles himself remained mostly silent. Was he feeling relief? Regret? No one really knew. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with it. Meanwhile, William had no choice but to step up. There was no turning back now. This wasn't just about one man's decision, it was about the very foundation of the monarchy. Could it withstand this shock? Could it find a way to stay relevant in a world that was questioning everything it once held sacred? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain, this was just the beginning of a storm that would rage on for years to come. Was this the beginning of the monarchy's downfall or its rebirth? Will history judge Charles or William more harshly? What do you think? Leave a comment, like, and subscribe for more.